qualifying, as I say, in 4.5 hours time is held in wet conditions as well. So it is important for them to get out there and try and get a good setup, because the way that the weekends works here, you have qualifying and then the qualifying race tomorrow morning, which gives you your grid position for the main race. So it's all about keeping the momentum up. So qualifying here is going to be vital.
Yeah, in the space of Max Guts going quickest, he's now dropped down to 5th place as Lawrence Van Thor, Ortelli, Colombo, and he's joined the pits as well. Winkelhock, Rast, and then Guts is now 6th quickest. So simply everybody leaving the pit lane going that little bit quicker than the car that previously had gone across the start-finish line.
Here is Laurens Van Thor, currently the quickest man of anyone. He comes out through the right-hander of turn 4, out into the old town, up towards turn 7. And that's a tricky corner that caught out a number of drivers this morning, having to go straight on and then reversing round. Enzo Eid was one of them, the Beechstein Aston Martin another, as Van Thor tries to find his way past. He is also the man in contention for the overall Blancpain GT Series, a combination of endurance and sprint, but at the moment it's Max Buch who's at the top of those standings. So we could end up with a scenario where Max Buch is the champion of the overall GT Series, Max Goetz is the champion of the Sprint Series, and they're both sharing the same car.
Just watching the BMW and Audi coming down into turn 10, and the visibility, you put the spray to get an idea, and of course reference points on this track, which is predominantly lined with concrete barriers, are few and far between, as Laurens Van Thor just chucks the Audi into the final chicane into turn 13. This was easy, flat out in dry conditions. It's probably going to be a little bit more circumspect, and conditions deteriorating in this session. We're only 6.5 minutes into it, and basically just getting worse.
Into the first chicane comes Van Thor, who has been very strong in qualifying this season. They've had 3 pole positions, he and Cesar Ramos, in the qualifying sessions at Brands Hatch, and last time out as well at Zolder, as well as the Slovakia Ring, and they've won qualifying races as well, but it hasn't come together for them in the final races, and traffic is going to be an issue, I think, in qualifying as well later on.
Well, traffic, and certainly if weather remains like this, visibility is going to be an issue too, because when you're getting groups of cars running closely together, with the amount of water that's on the circuit, it isn't really looking as if it's able to drain away particularly quickly, and what you're getting now is almost like a fog hovering over the circuit, and your focus of concentration and being aware of traffic. Again, you see the Mercedes Dusseldorf, I think might be in that one, trying to get up the inside of the Lamborghini down in turn 3. I don't think the Lambo knew anybody was there.
This Mercedes SLS that's just in front of Thomas Pavoda, who we're watching now, is the GT Russian racing car, and that is very good to have it out, because they had a big accident in Zolder a couple of weeks ago, so they've had to get a brand new car built up, and it's good to see them out here, as there is Sergei Afanasyev actually, who's at the wheel of that Mercedes at the moment, going past Thomas Pavoda down into the left-hander of 7. We have had 29 cars take to the track. I need to find out how much damage was done to Frederic Verviche's Boots and Gignon McLaren, because that car went into the tyre barriers in free practice 1, and so have they gone out onto the track? I don't think they have, so that's our one runner that is not out there, the 16 Boots and Gignon car, and Chris van der Drift and Frederic Verviche are there. But this weekend David Addison is down in the pit lane, and conditions a little challenging for him as well as the drivers, I imagine.
You're not wrong, Jack. It's chilly down here. The pit lane, as you would imagine, is completely emptied, because everybody is trying to maximise as much of this hour as they possibly can. So the pit lane is empty, but it's continuing to rain, or really I suppose be heavy drizzle. It's not quite got to the point of rain yet, but the drivers learning about a new circuit, changed from last year as you've said, but also now a wet circuit, so this hour is hugely important to them.
It shouldn't be totally empty there, because we've had 29 cars go out there, so I think we've got the Boots and Gignon McLaren still in there, so if we could find out exactly what has happened to them, that would be smashing.
I will go and investigate for you.
Good work. So get him working early on, I think, John.
Oh yeah, get him stuck in, and those unfortunately the conditions are just unpleasant. It's not heavy rain, but it's remaining on the circuit. In the meantime, Laurens Van Thor gone quicker again. Marcus Winkelhock, second place, had initially gained overall quickest time, but he's been disposed by his Audi teammate by just over a quarter of a second. A Porsche! I can't believe it!
We have a Porsche, you may have noticed, and it is we've got a couple of Porsches actually this weekend. This one is the track speed car, which is being driven by Richard Westbrook and Norbert Siedler, both of them very successful racers. Richard Westbrook has been racing GTs for many years. Norbert Siedler, a front runner in the Porsche Super Cup and German Porsche Carrera Cup. And it was actually Richard Westbrook's recommendation that Norbert Siedler partnered him this weekend, because it was going to be Westbrook and Nick Tandy, but Nick Tandy has to go and race in the World Endurance Championship out in Shanghai, and they said to Richard, well, who are we going to have alongside you? He said, Norbert Siedler, he's really good.
Yeah, no, it's a good pick, and Richard, of course, spent many years competing in Porsche Super Cup before moving into other forms of GT and racing in North America, in the Grand Am Series as well. So back in a Porsche, familiar surroundings for him, but in track conditions, which there seems to be a reasonable amount of grip being offered up by the wet weather Pirelli tyre and by the cars on the track, the surface itself. The cars are only lapping, 12 seconds a lap slower in these conditions than they did at the best of the first 1 hour session we had earlier this morning.
This is Stefan Landmann's car we're looking at, the 27 machine that has come into the pits. We also saw a shot of the Frederik Vervisch, Chris van der Drift, Boots and Gignon McLaren that looked as though it was getting ready to head back out onto the track. Great to have Boots and Gignon here. They were very strong last season. We've also got some Corvettes out, and they're running in tandem. The 110 car is Daniel Kilvitz and Andreas Verth, and the 112 car is Sven Bart and David Jahn.
Yeah, you get this wonderful rumble from the Callaway Corvette V8 engine. It's just something very special indeed. We had a Corvette here last year. Sadly, it didn't get to make the race, but two of them here, hoping we can see them qualifying near the front of the grid and really mix it up with the regular in Blancpain Sprint.
It was the 110 car that we had here last year, and that white machine with the red and blue stripes, and that had Daniel Kilvitz and Jeroen Blekemolen at the wheel. They were fastest, I think, in the first free practice session, but then in the second free practice session they ended up having contact with another car, which put them out for the weekend, which was a real shame, because Blekemolen was looking quick. Is Blekemolen looking quick so far in this session? Not particularly at the moment, down in 26th place, but I think that's Harry Prochik at the wheel at the moment. So 30 cars on the grid. We've had 29 take to the track, and that's 5 cars up on our entry from 2 weeks ago in Zolder, and some of the entries really are strong lineups. A lot of factory drivers being brought in as well, most notably from McLaren, who've thrown all their factory drivers at it this weekend. We've got Kevin Estre and Rob Bell sharing a Boots and Gignon, and we've got Alvaro Parent joining the Bitec team.
Yeah, and it was here last year that Kevin Estre really sealed his position as a top GT driver that enabled him to move forward and become a factory driver for the McLaren team.
Coming down into the left-hander is another of our entries for Baku, the 888 Racing machine of Ryan Ratcliffe and Joe Osborne, who are competing in the Silver Cup. And we can go down to the pits to David Addison.
And news about your missing McLaren, Jack, because 16 is the car that Frederik Vervisch put in the wall earlier on in the day. That car had a bit of suspension damage. It didn't seem to go into the tyres that heavily, but it did do a bit of damage. They've repaired that. It is about to join the session, admittedly late, but you will have that McLaren on track any moment. Excellent.
Great news. So, yeah, it was coming out of the right-hander of turn 8 that the McLaren just nerfed into the tyres, really went under the tyres a little bit, but it didn't look like too much of an issue, but clearly some suspension damage was picked up from that.
Well, it's been part of the racetrack we've seen in previous years. We're now watching the BMW, the 888 BMW come down to that very part of the track. That head-on shot doesn't really show you if somebody's going to get it all wrong, as was in the case of Vervisch, and he just buried the nose, the left side of the car in the tire barrier. It didn't look like it was much damage. He was able to drive the car back to the pit lane, but of course on an inspection they discovered that there's been some amount of damage to the front suspension. By the way, Laurens van Thor now over a second quicker than Lisowski in the Silver Cup Audi.
Yeah, that's an impressive
very strong
impressive stuff from Mateusz Lazowski. Also impressive stuff from Laurens Vanthoor to be a second clear of anyone else. And in fact, it's a WRT 1-2-3 at the moment, with Vanthoor, Lazowski and Ortelli in the top 3 places. Then it's the Beechstein Aston Martin of Andy Soucek. Max Goetz is in 5th. In 6th position is Richard Westbrook in the Porsche. And there's another one, John.
2 of them. 2 this weekend.
This one is being driven currently by Martin Ragginger, and that's the car he is sharing with Marco Holzer. A really strong pairing, and they're driving for Schutz Motorsport, the German squad. Great to have them here, and great to have a couple of Porsches in the Blancpain Sprint Series this season, as Ragginger comes down to the hairpin, gets on the brakes. It's very bouncy, and as the surface changes around that left-hander.
Yeah, that is actually a part of the characteristic of a Porsche. It tends to have that sort of bouncy motion, and it's inherent in the core of the design of the car. Remember, this is a 50-year-old design and an amazing legacy. As they come down up to turn 6, easy to overshoot under brakes. Gets it in nice and neatly and tidily, makes his apex. So everything works very well for something that was designed almost the same year I was born.
Goodness me. 35.5 in that first sector. Laurens Vanthoor's just on a 34.5 in the first sector. The first sector is down to the exit of turn 3. And so it's the first chicane, and then the hairpin is the first sector. The middle sector takes you all the way out to just after turn 9, and then we're in the final sector now, where Ragginger goes a bit wide.
Yeah, up the hill to this 11 and 12, the very sort of flip-flap. They're actually now using very much the same sort of entry and exit that they were doing in the drive, once they've got the sense of feel and confidence with the circuit and their car. So let's see what kind of time we can expect to see an improvement.
5th place for Ragginger.
Yeah, 5th place, yeah, it's a good effort. 44.4, 1.2 seconds slower than fastest man Laurens Vanthoor, who is a second quicker than Winkelhock. So actually, that time from Ragginger was a very strong time amongst the Audis, which are being totally dominant at this point, with 43 minutes to go.
Well, Vanthoor's just gone 2.5 seconds quicker than anyone else in that WRT Audi, but he's got Markus Winkelhock chasing him down, who was a good 8/10 slower in the first sector, but he set the fastest middle sector of anyone. Max Goetz now moves just 1.5 seconds behind Vanthoor in the HDP Mercedes, so the time's continuing to drop.
I mean, that's Vanthoor's time is now 9 seconds slower than the dry time from this morning, which is, in these conditions, is an amazing effort, and it just indicates that actually, whatever the track surface is, it's offering up a lot of grip. Even up through this part of the circuit, coming up through turns 5, 6 and 7, which is the old time. You can even see the sheen on the tarmac, even though it is a wet surface, it still shines in daylight.
Down towards turn 8, which brings them back out onto the dual carriageway. Markus Winkelhock had a spin between turn 9 and 10, which is a bit of a scary place to have a spin.
Well, this is 9 and 10.
Yeah, it must have been coming around here. And he lost about 20 seconds. So a big moment for Markus Winkelhock out there, because he was looking quick. He'd just set the fastest second sector of anyone. Here's a look up the inside from Vanthoor as he makes his way past the 112 Callaway Corvette, which is currently in the hands of Sven Bart. Flashing up towards the final chicane. The main job of this final chicane is to take a bit of speed off, but also to get the cars over the racing line, over to the other side of the track than the pit entry.
Yeah, and it's a slow and ponderous pit lane entry. So let's look again and see, coming out of turn 10 as around.
That is Winkelhock.
Yeah, that was on the exit of turn 10. So it was a harmless part of the circuit to have a little spin. I thought if you're coming out of turn 9 and a spin, you'd still be spinning all the way down to turn 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was the exit of turn 10 that Vinky lost the back of the car. Laurens Vanthoor's come into the pits then. René Rast has gone second quickest in the WRT Audi, so it's them first and second. Max Goetz in third. Fourth for Stefan Ortelli. Markus Winkelhock fifth. In sixth place at the moment is the another car we haven't actually mentioned yet, the Prosperia Abt Racing team, who are running Christopher Mies and Kelvin van der Linde. And they are up in sixth quickest.
He's South African.
Yes, he is. Was that South African?
That is my best South African.
And he is currently 6th quickest, Kelvin van der Linde. He's graduated up from VW Racing, raced in the Polo Cup in South Africa, and then into the Scirocco Cup last season, where he was very impressive. Youngest driver ever as well in the Blancpain Sprint Series. René Rast has just gone fastest in the middle sector. We saw those two WRC drivers there just having a chat about the steering wheel, which was quite interesting. This is the turn that's been slowed down since last year at turn 4. Takes it more like a 90-degree corner than the quicker flash up the hill that we had last season.
Yeah, but taking the chicane out on the exit after turn 3, suddenly always is going to see the turn, what would have been a very, very quick exit off the dual carriage onto the old part of the city, conceived or believed to be just too much. So they put the chicane in. Not really going to offer up much opportunities of overtaking, I would imagine, but it will slow the cars down on that section of the circuit.
Harry Prochik, the man battling for the championship lead, is currently in 27th place. He's done 9 laps out there, but is 6 seconds off the pace. He did race here last year, Harry Prochik, and had a pretty strong run, and they ended up getting on the Pro-Am podium. Van Thor currently quickest, but René Rast has moved to within 0.4 of a second now of the flying Belgian up at the front. Marcus Winkelhock has gone 3rd quickest now, 1.3 seconds down.
The top 6 places, 5 are held by Audis, and there's Maximilian Götz, I beg your pardon, in the championship leading, or the driver championship leading, Mercedes-Benz in 4th place, but really Audi just dominating these conditions.
And at the moment, in the top 6 positions, they're all our full season runners.
Cesar Ramos.
He's just got into the car, taken over from Van Thor.
But that's still Van Thor's time.
Yep. So we are now watching Stefan Ortelli coming out of the right-hander, heading down the hill now, and this is the very quick turn 9 that was slower last year, but really is quite a pacey corner in these conditions, nice and wide as well. He's following Max Goetz down towards the hairpin. Here's Stefan Ortelli, currently 5th quickest, but he's done personal bests, as you can see, in sectors 1 and 2, a 34.7 and a 38.880. Starting to climb the hill. Max Goetz isn't going particularly quickly into the final chicane, flashing through it. Yeah, Goetz comes into the pits. What can Ortelli do?
Well, it takes a lot of care coming through those little lefts and rights in the chicane. This will be an improvement for the monogas driver, and he is up to 3rd place, 42.179.
And that's in the car that he shares with former GP2 racer, well, current GP2 racer, I suppose, and GP2 race winner Stefan Rakelny. Max Goetz has come into the pits to hand over to Max Buch. But the quickest man we have so far is Laurens Van Thor. He's back into the pits. Now he's with David Addison.
Laurens Van Thor fresh out of the car. It looks a real challenge in this rain.
Yeah, it's pretty challenging because it's a city track and it's wet, so quite a lot of risk, but it's quite fun. So,
is it a real headache trying to keep the car off the wall at this point, or are you still learning and still gaining data? What's the main aim in the session?
Well, to learn the track more and more, especially in our rain conditions, because tomorrow it will be similar probably. But the car feels really good, so I could push without being scared to put in the wall. So that's a good feeling on a city track, which you need.
Excellent. Thanks, Laurens.
Good to hear from Laurens Van Thor then. We're watching his teammate now, Cesar Ramos. The Brazilian has taken over at the wheel of the number 1 WRT Audi. And yeah, the conditions tomorrow are due to be a little bit moist as well.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because with a 30-car field and track conditions as they are, visibility is always going to be an issue, particularly in the opening laps. And just the nature of these sort of scummy, slick type surfaces, which very much the case you get on a street track. You've got normal road grime that's got to be cleared away before you can even really get to the crux of what the circuit might offer up. Nevertheless, to be within 9 seconds of a dry time set earlier in the morning, I think is an amazing effort by Laurens Van Thor, and René Rast just under 0.4 of a second behind, and Stefan Ortelli in 3rd place, a further 10th and a bit behind René Rast.
Chris van der Drift up into the left-hander of turn 7. the Kiwi, who's been racing for the Bitec McLaren team most of this season, has sort of given up his spot almost to allow Alvaro Parent there, and as a result has been switched to the Boots and Gignon car. A lot of teams seeing this final season closer, if you will, in Baku as a good opportunity to get their works drivers out there. So as I say, Rob Bell, Kevin Estre and Alvaro Parent all coming out of the woodwork. Also we've got for Porsche the likes of Martin Raginger and Marco Holzer coming out to play. Up the hill then comes Chris van der Drift into the chicane. Interesting to see what Boots and Gignon can do. They were strong here last season with Frederic Verviche. In fact, they were up into second place at one point.
It was Kevin Estre was really
Kevin Estre was with Hexis last year.
The Hexis car, yes. But there was the performance of the McLarens was notable. Interesting also, Chris van der Drift not quite so committed through the chicane as we've seen from the Audis.
There is Fabio Anidi at the wheel of the car that he shares with Giorgio Pantano. That's the 60 Bitec McLaren. There is race control, and they are keeping an eye on progress as one of the cars has skipped off at turn 7. And they are currently coordinating that effort in their mobile centre, which is just next door. We could probably go in and say hello, but they're a bit busy at the moment trying to deal with that car off.
Full concentration required in these conditions. And turn 7 again at the end of the back straight, or what might be the back straight in the old part of the city. And again, very slippery surface in that part of the racetrack.
Through the left-hander comes the 777 car, the Prosperio Abt racing car, run by Christian Abt. And it's a sort of slightly separate entity to the Abt racing team that we see in the DTM and in Formula E, which is more in the hands of Hans-Jürgen Abt. But currently at the wheel of the 777 car is Kelvin van der Linde still, but this is the yellow flag zone here.
Yes, and that is there to slow you down, especially because there's a car in that runoff area. You don't want another car getting caught by the same driver error.
It's the Fortec car that has gone off there of Miguel Toril. So it's Toril who has gone straight on, although the yellow flags have just come in, so maybe he's been cleared now. Miguel, the Spaniard, who was one of the first drivers to walk the track on Thursday morning, or Friday morning I should say. So down comes Kelvin van der Linde, a very impressive young South African racer, into the hairpin of turn 10 and then back up the hill. 33 minutes to go in this second free practice session. It's still the time of Laurens Vanthoor that remains quickest. Rene Rast second and Stefano Telli third. Matej Sosowski and Stefano Colombo in fourth and fifth, both doing battle over the Silver Cup as well. And at the moment, it's Lazowski who's comfortably leading, he and Abril who are comfortably leading the Silver Cup, and it would take a bit of a miracle really for Stefano Colombo and David Fuminelli to haul that back in. Into the pits has come the 15 Boots and Gignon car, and that is Kevin Estre and Rob Bell.
Yeah, Kelvin van der Linde doing a strong job in the Audi. Track conditions almost now beginning to see. The rain, I think, has probably stopped momentarily, and almost a hint of not a drying line, but a bit of the racetrack that isn't as wet as others. So 32 minutes of the session remain. Still the time by Laurens Vanthoor at 1 minute 41.670 as we look at the Beechstein Aston Martin. Rides the curbs very, very well, you can see. We notice the car probably has a little bit more roll in it than other cars on the circuit. That's partly also why I think they're able to handle those curbs with less disruption. Interesting, Rene Rast, second sector, fastest overall on his previous last lap. So 146.8 was an outlap for the German driver. I wonder what he's going to do in his first flying lap in this particular run.
We're in there. Oh, don't. Okay, this is hilarious. Okay, so we're here with 31 minutes to go in the
coffee, 2 sugars and some milk, please. Thank you very much.
I'm all right. I'm all right, thanks. Thank you, Rousey. I think your work here is done. And 31 minutes to go then here in the second free practice session. Go and have another ice cream. Can you shut the door? Thank you. And here's a reasonably slow HTP car out there of Lucas Wolff and Lucas Stoltz. down in 25th position at the moment. We saw a shot earlier on of Alex Zanardi. He's only 23rd quickest at the moment, having gone quickest of anyone in free practice 1. It'd be brilliant if Zanardi could end the season with a strong race performance.
He'll not be looking forward to it. If it's going to be like this tomorrow, it'll be tough work for everybody. Not least of all Alex Zanardi, who of course is the only driver in the field who will drive the entire event solo.
Now here comes René Rast, fastest in the middle sector after a personal best in sector 1. So it's looking pretty strong for the German to dispose of the Belgian at the top of the timing screens. First of all, we're going to see Johnny Adam come through in the 107 car, and he comes around the final corner. I don't think he's going to improve because it hasn't been a very strong lap, and he remains in 20th place. But René Rast has gone quickest, and David Fuminelli has gone off the track. That'll be down at the left-hander of turn 7.
Yes, very good lap by René Rast.
Apologies.
René Rast 140.583, and fastest second and third sectors for the German. Sergio Ramos in the car that here we look at Fuminelli or Colombo, but Sergio Ramos, who's in the car that previously held that fastest single lap, his personal best is only a 43.1 on his previous last lap.
So we saw Colombo just getting in too deep on the brakes. And
René
now
Rast.
we look at René Rast. His first sector isn't particularly strong, about 0.3 of a second slower than he has gone before. Let's ride on board with him. Let's listen through this quick right-hander actually at turn 9.
Proper corner on a street track to get high-speed corners like this is rare, and it's all the better for it.
A lift in the middle of the corner whilst in these wet conditions, and then down into this hairpin, which is shorter than before, and the drivers are saying it's a much better hairpin than last time.
It's a much better corner. In fact, it's a much better circuit overall with the changes that have been made since last year. And this very quick little left-right flick, which is really there to enable drivers to peel off to the right and just having to get on the brakes rather abruptly as the BMW, the Brazil BMW, was also coming into the pits. Let's look at the back and see what's happening.
Oh, that's going to be hitting the wall.
Is it going to cream the wall? Well, there's not much between the paintwork of the Mercedes and the wall as they come out of turn 7.
Yep, it's Max Buch at the wheel of the championship leading 84 Mercedes. And this is the run up towards that corner and then down towards the right-hander. That's the GT Russian car, currently in the hands of Marco Asma in 27th place. Then we've got the Porsche, which is now in the hands of Marco Holzer. He's taken over at the wheel of the Schutz Motorsport Porsche. Coming through the right-hander now of turn 9. Got a couple of cars up in front of him. Chris van der Drift and the second Bitec McLaren, which is currently in 20th place of Philippe Salaquada.
Philippe Salaquada jumping from Ferraris to McLarens, and wonder if he's enjoying either experience. So through, again, not showing the kind of commitment that you see from the quicker cars. Both the McLarens, in relative terms, slow the Porsche behind, breathing all over the back of the second of the two McLarens as they come through the final turn.
Still René Rast then, the quickest man that we've had, and he's come back into the pits after that run, a 1 minute 40.583, a second quicker than Laurens Vanthoor managed, albeit in different conditions. Currently third quickest now is the number 9 car of Stefan Rakelmi, and I think that's still with Stefan Ortelli's lap time. Matej Stumpf has just jumped up to 4th quickest in the Brazilian BMW.
It's been there for a couple of laps now, and it's gone back into the pits, but Matej Stumpf just showing that the BMW has Alex Zanardi there, we see coming through turn 3. There should be a car that works really well in these conditions, got a lot of downforce. Maybe we'll lose out a little bit in ultimate dry conditions, but in these conditions I would have thought the BMW would have been a really good car to be.
Alex Zanardi heading up towards the left-hander. We've seen action from McLarens out there. One McLaren driver is Kevin Estre. He's with David Addison.
Kevin Estre, one of the stars here last year. What's it like out there in the rain this year?
Well, it's quite different, but I like it. The track is not too bad for a street circuit with all the white painting. It doesn't disturb so much. There is kind of a line a lot drier than everything else, so you need to stay in this kind of dry line, and then it's fine. But as soon as you go offline, then it's quite tricky. But the car is pretty stable. We need to finalize a bit and to help it a little bit with the setup, but I think it's gonna be tough to beat the Audi when it's raining. For us, it would be better when it will stay dry, but yeah, the weather we can't choose, so we'll see.
And what about overtaking round here? Street circuits are notoriously narrow. There are wide bits, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult, but I think for a street circuit, there are quite a lot of opportunity. Let's say 2 big opportunity with the 2 hairpin, turn 3 and turn 10, because it's quite wide there on the braking. For sure, if the guy in front of you block, then it's going to be hard, but this is on every track. So for a street circuit, I think we could see a nice race with some overtaking.
Have a good weekend, thanks.
Interesting, some of Kevin's observations, because we noticed coming into turns 11 and 12 that the McLarens vis-a-vis the Porsche going through were not quite so confident and able to chuck the car in and drive it on the throttle.
Alex Zanardi coming up now towards turn 7. And has he managed to climb up the order a bit? Yes, he has. He's up into 9th place as we go on board with him, working the gears with his thumb and the throttle there with his fingers. Pulls that ring closer towards him to get on the power. Kelvin van der Linde has just gone 3rd quickest in that 777 Prosperia Apt Racing Audi. And Enzo Ede has now taken over from René Rast at the wheel of the number 2 WRT Audi, and it's a personal best in the middle sector for Zanardi as he comes out of the hairpin, and it's those hairpins where he has to turn the wheel all the way around while still using the paddle there to give the speed.
And then you got the view of him coming through turns 11 and 12. That's the left-right little chicane. You bump it on the inside, stay off it on the second part, and then through the flat-out turn 13, flat-out in the dry. In these conditions, there's going to be a bit of a breathe going into it, and then gradually opening the throttle all the way through down into turns 1 and 2. The chicane bumping on the exit, then flat out. And again, he's putting his hand up all the time to his face, so whether he's got sweat running down and it's getting into his eyes or something is irritating him, but you can see his hand up and down to the visor, and maybe sometimes your driver, when he puts a balaclava on, some of the hair gets trapped and it can sort of fall into your eye line.
Up into 7th place with that lap was Alex Zanardi, and just behind Vincent Abril in 6th and ahead of his teammate Stefano Colombo, who's in 8th place. Nicky Melnoff's in 9th at the moment in the car he shares with Marcus Winkelhock. Max Buch and Max Goetz only 11th quickest at the moment, and the 28 car of Prochik and Bleekemolen is currently I'm struggling to see
22nd.
Yes. Jeroen Bleekemolen has just taken over at the wheel, although he's done personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, so that 28 Grasser Racing Lamborghini might be jumping up before too long, as we see the 61 car of Philippe Salaquada now coming through the right-hander down towards the 2nd hairpin in the car that this weekend he is sharing with Alvaro Parent. So it'll be interesting to see how that car can perform, because Alvaro Parent will be a good gauge, because Bitec have struggled a little bit this year. They've made the step up from International GT Open into the Blancpain Sprint Series, and they haven't been, towards the front. But Parent will give us a gauge as to whether it's, the drivers or the teams or what's going on there.
Well, it is a quick car, but it's not always, in every condition, the easiest car to drive, and so it needs the experience of people like Alvaro Parent, Kevin Estra, those that can sort of grab the car and show the car that I'm in charge, and not sometimes the other way around, when the car can take over the confidence of a driver, as the 2 McLarens now come out of turns 1 and 2 and then make the run down into one of the major overtaking areas on the circuit into turn 3.
This one perhaps more so, because coming out of the chicane, it's a little bit more likely that someone's going to make a mistake, as opposed to that long right-hander of turn 9, as we see these Bitec McLarens continuing to run in formation. The 60 car is currently in the hands of Giorgio Pantano, who's taken over from Fabio Anidi, and they're down in 28th place at the moment. So not a strong run for Anidi and Pantano at the moment. With 21 minutes to go, Andreas Simonsen has just set the fastest first sector of anyone in the Zach Speed car. Never thought I'd commentate on a Zach Speed in a race, but it's happening this weekend, and Andreas Simonsen and Alan Day are the pairing in that Mercedes SLS. Both of them know their way around.
They do, but more importantly, Jerome Blake-Mullen's gone third quickest in the Lamborghini.
Yep, and we can see there it is Anidi in the car, because that was Giorgio Pantano. So Anidi comes around the hairpin.
Yes, it moves over, lets the sister car go through. So Anidi going to come into the pits and just making way for other cars that are quicker up the hill, trying to keep out of the way as they watch the Mercedes go through. Normally a car that also reasonably good at riding the curbs. So the Mercedes and the McLaren into the pit lane.
But here comes the Zach Speed.
Zanardi's gone third quickest, just
he has, that out. But Andreas Simonsen is about to come across the line. Where's this going to put him? Up into fifth place. So Zanardi goes third, Simonsen goes fifth. The track is getting better because the rain has stopped by the looks of things, and with 20 minutes to go, it could start to dry out, and it's going to be interesting because all experience in these conditions is going to be important this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, as Kevin Estra pointed out, if you stay on the drying line, and in fairness, I think the rain actually stopped about 10 minutes ago, so the track has gradually begun to improve. And Simonsen fastest first sector, personal best second and third. I'm slightly disappointed. I thought maybe with that fastest first sector, he might have been marginally further up than in fifth place.
He's done a pretty good first sector again here at 34.551. It isn't the best, but it's only half a tenth of a second slower than he managed on that previous lap. Now into the left-hander, Andreas Simonsen. Both he and Alan Day, race winners in the Sprint Series as it was last season, FIA GT. Down now through the long right-hander of the dual carriageway. He's got a bit of traffic coming up in front of him, which is Philippe Salaquada in the Bitec McLaren. Looks at the inside. He's not going to be quite close enough to make the move.
Well, the McLaren
just gets out of the way.
Just gets out of the way. I mean, the McLaren, looks to me they're all struggling to get bite, traction, everything, and they're just going through the motions of waiting for the track to come to them rather than maybe trying to dial the car into a wet track. Difficult conditions right now for all the McLaren drivers, I would say. Here
comes Simonsen. You can see the dry line starting to form. Is this going to be an improvement? No, he remains, it is an improvement, but he remains in sixth position because Jeroen Bleekemolen has gone up to fifth quickest. There is Alan Day looking very happy, but Jeroen Bleekemolen's just moved up into fifth place.
He's dropped from third to fifth. He was up to third and he's dropped to fifth.
Up into fourth place now has gone Norbert Siedler in the track speed Porsche, and that's the car we're looking at now. Personal best in the first sector, middle sector a couple of tenths down, but he might still be able to improve. Currently in fourth place as he comes around turn 13. Here comes the track speed Porsche across the line. Where's this going to put him?
Yes!
Second place.
Track conditions clearly are improving lap by lap. It's got nothing to do with the car or the driver, but nonetheless, within 1 second of the fastest time set a little bit earlier in the session by Laurens van Thor. We got Enzo Ede in that car, but Enzo's not able to lap within 2.5, 3 seconds of René Rast.
Yep, as we watch a bit of a slow-mo action from Norbert Siedler down at the hairpin in that Porsche that gets muckier and muckier because of the conditions here. Zanardi's gone personal bests in sectors 1 and 2. He's down in fifth place at the moment. Is he going to improve as he comes across the line? Yes, he is, up into fourth position then. Fastest middle sector of anyone now for Andreas Simonsen in the Zach Speed Mercedes. So he might be challenging up at the top as well as we go on board now with Zanardi down towards turn 3.
And look for the drying line because that's going to be the quickest way for the Italian driver. And the gearbox clunks into the paddle shift on the steering wheel. Very good traction out of turn 3 for the BMW. Then it's going to be hard on the brakes again, up to turn 4, filling to the left. Again, they see the drying line. just run the curb slightly, make sure you don't run the tire wall on the inside. This is very, no, it's good. BMW's got good traction. Be able to use everything the car's got.
On the brakes, into 7. And now down into 8, which takes it back out onto the dual carriageway. Getting on the power, and then let's see how he deals with this long right-hander of 9.
Having to breathe it. Can't really commit to being flat out. There's always that sense of, I know I could have done it a little bit better, and it's just breaking through that sort of mental barrier of whether the car is going to stay with you or whether you're going to end up in a big accident bouncing down the sides of the concrete barriers.
Zanardi very aggressive over the curbs. He really throws the car around. As you see there at the final corner, watching down at the first chicane today, that was one of the things in particular about Zanardi that was noticeable. He was using every single part of the track he possibly could, and that completes the flying lap of Baku. Cesar Ramos has just jumped up into second place. Norbert Siedler is in 7th, and his teammates with David Addison.
Richard Westbrook, it's welcome back to Porsches, and it looks like it's going pretty well.
It is actually, yeah. The car's good round here. It's a great track. It's good to be back with track speed, and it's good to be back in a SRO event.
And what about you and Norbert? Is this a new combination, and how are you getting on?
Oh, we get on really well. We've done a Nürburgring 24 hours together and a few VLN, so I know Norbert really well. He's so fast in a Porsche, so no, it seems to be going pretty well at the moment. It's early days, changeable conditions, but no, just really happy to be back here.
And this has been a weird session. It's not really ever been properly wet, but it's never really stopped raining enough to even hint at dry.
Well, it started to dry up a bit, but then it went greasy, and it's actually made it better now that we've got a bit more water on the track. Yeah, it's no fun on a greasy track in a street circuit, especially somewhere like here. It's pretty fast for a street circuit, but it's a real challenge, and I'm really enjoying being here.
Good luck for the weekend.
Thank you. Nice one.
Richard Westbrook, and that car is currently in 7th place with his teammate Norbert Siedler. And great to have track speed here. Very successful in British GT over the years. They made an appearance last season and were running quite strongly in the qualifying race, but then just a little tap meant that the radiator got damaged. Meanwhile, Cesar Ramos has gone fastest in sectors 1 and 2, but his final sector isn't very good at all, about 2 seconds down, and as a result, Alex Zanardi is able to take advantage and jump up into 2nd place. So Zanardi goes 2nd quickest.
Well, maybe that's some of that aggression that you noticed in Alex Zanardi's driving has contributed with a dry-ish line and a car that's got good traction, and of course a massive heart and commitment from the Italian.
Now we are looking at the Sperfico twins, who are sharing the 20 Brazilian car this weekend, and it's Ricardo Sperfico and Rodrigo Sperfico.
Well, when they were about 7-8 years ago, you get all these Brazilian talents coming along, and in the case of the Sperficos, you didn't get one, you got 2.
And this is Rodrigo Sperfico, who is at the wheel at the moment, down towards the hairpin. Will get his 2nd sector split, and it's a personal best, but he's down in 21st place at the moment. Does have experience with these cars, having raced in the Brazilian GT3 Championship a couple of years ago with AH Competiciones, who run the Brazilian BMW outfit. Look at that, he get his rear wheel up there.
Yeah, but I mean, they were able to take so much of the curb from the inside on the left hand. I mean, that's a big commitment, and that's confidence in the chassis, because you wouldn't be doing that if you didn't feel the car was with you. So they can take a lot of that. I mean, virtually they're straight lined. What would be turns 11 and 12.
Through the chicane comes Sperfico as the Brazilian squad watch on, as we see a replay, and this is, watch the right rear here.
But look, half the cars over the curb. Yeah.
Whoa, both of them.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
Absolutely.
But the car is solid, even in spite of getting the right side of the car airborne. It comes down square and it stays square.
Green flags being waved because I think it's Cesar Ramos who has gone straight on at turn 7. The Brazilian in the number 1 WRT Audi, who was looking very quick, set personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, and then on the next lap appears to have gone straight on at turn 7. Across the line now comes the 777 car with Christopher Mies at the wheel, and he's currently in 10th place. And we had Rodrigo Sperripico out there on the circuit. Presumably it's Ricciardo that David Addison is with down in the pits.
Rodrigo Sperripico down in the pit lane. It's just like being back home, isn't it? You know, glorious weather, all the sun shining.
Yeah, it's like that. We just started on dry track, and we have to split the car. You know, I'm and my brother, and when we just starting learning the track, and the second session starting run, so it's almost a challenge to go dry on wet and know the car, know the track. So we're having fun right now.
But you're enjoying it now. The two of you are evenly matched. Are you quicker than your brother, or is it a very even split?
No, it's almost a different situation most of the time. It's on dry, the track was, when I started, the track was dirty and getting better, and now it was very quick, wet when I started, and now it's getting a little bit better, but we have a lot to improve and to know the car and the track.
So you're hoping now that it dries out and you can find some time in qualifying?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the first qualifying and do the next two. So we hope you can improve more than this.
Good luck.
So that is Rodrigo Sperripico then, which means that the transponder that they are sending back to us here is wrong, because that says Rodrigo's at the wheel, but quite clearly he is not. Max Buch has brought that very dirty Mercedes back and handed it over to Max Goetz.
Yeah, I mean, they're only down, well, they're all the way down in 19th place, so they're not getting the best out of the Mercedes in these conditions. They may not be overly worried about that at this stage. We've still got just over 9 minutes remaining. But if they want to be in a pound seat, I mean, Max Goetz pretty much is, it's going to take something remarkable for him not to finish in the points and seal the Drivers' Championship. But as this car 28 goes through, they've got to really win the race. They've got to just come and take the race by the scruff of the neck and win it.
And that's what they're doing by going quickest, a 1 minute 40.252. Jeroen Bleekemolen jumps to the top of the times for the Grasser Racing Lamborghini team after what seemed to be a difficult start to the session. They're starting to get into the groove now, and Bleekemolen goes quickest, 0.3 of a second quicker than René Rast in second, as Alex Zanardi still third now. Cesar Ramos drops down to fourth. Dominic Bowens in 5th place in the 76 Schubert BMW, 6th for Andreas Simonsen for Zakspeed, 7th is the 36 car of Marco Holzer and the Schutz Motorsport Porsche. 8th place is Norbert Siedler in the Trackspeed Porsche, 9th Andy Soucek in the Beechstein Aston Martin, and 10th place is Christopher Mies in the Abt Audi.
Just watching Jeroen Bleekemolen as he came through turns 5 and 6, really pushing hard. You can see the back of the car almost breaking away as he came up through the old part of the city, the old town, back onto the dual carriageway through this what ought to be normally flat out in the dry, marginal in the wet, turn 9, run down the hill. So this run, nothing particular in terms of individual sector times for Jeroen Bleekemolen. He's probably given it the best he has.
There is the 86 car of Lucas Stoltz about to head out onto the track by the looks of it, in the Silver Cup category, coming through the final corner with 7 minutes to go. A personal best in the middle sector. The first sector was an outlap though, so let's see what Rob Bell can do as he comes down towards turn 1. This chicane that hasn't really changed much since the inception last year, and you don't really go for that second apex or third apex, I should say, do they? They tend to sort of try and straight line it out.
You're going to try and straight line it, get the car squared up, and then really get on the throttle as hard as you can, and whatever you've got to do to get out of the chicane, you do. And with the hope, just interestingly, Jeroen Bleekemolen on another very quick first sector, fastest of anybody, with track conditions, which it is a sort of scummy surface. We heard Richard Westbrook describe that. Nevertheless, if that's going to be the quick way around the racetrack, and Jeroen Bleekemolen really here through this part of the circuit, right on the edge, wave yellow flag, somebody up in turn 7.
So someone's just gone off at turn 7, and something's going on down in the pit lane. Adders, what news?
Only really, Jack, that the last wave of pit stops have put people onto a new set of wet tyres. So the fact that it's also just stopped raining for the moment does suggest there's a bit more to come from 1 or 2 teams. The other aspect of all of this is because of the rain that we've had, it's brought all the dirt out of the road, and the pit lane at the moment is a bit like being in a rally service park, because every car that comes in is absolutely filthy. There's going to have to be an awful lot of TLC, a good wash and valet, I think, before we get to qualifying.
Okay, thanks for that, David. It was the 16 car, as we are now seeing, that went straight on down there. That was Frederic Verviche, so his second mistake of the weekend in the Boots and Gignon car. The other 15 Boots and Gignon of Rob Bell is coming into the pit lane now. Laurens Vanthoor's just done the fastest first sector of anyone, a 33.917, which is comfortably quicker than anyone as well, actually.
But Norbert Ziegler in the Porsche, third quickest, just 0.3 of a second away from that fastest lap. Currently held by Jerome Bleekemolen, but it's going to be Laurens Vanthoor. Well, middle sector time, it's in the ballpark, but maybe not going to be good enough overall to take that dominant quickest position.
Across the line comes the 36 Schutz Motorsport car of Holzer and Raginger, and they, after setting pace earlier on, are down in 8th place. Marco Holzer at the wheel at the moment, and Zanardi's just done the fastest middle sector of anyone now, so Alex Zanardi is looking like he could challenge back up towards the top. He's currently 5th quickest at the moment. Vanthoor has gone 2nd quickest, 0.5 of a second slower than your own Bleekemolen, but Zanardi is somewhere in the final sector now and is coming towards the finish line. Let's see whether he can challenge those guys up at the top. Meanwhile, we are continuing to watch the Schutz Motorsport Porsche coming down into the well, now we're on board with Zanardi into the final chicane. First sector good, second sector good, first chicane, sorry, he's already gone quickest, my apologies, I misjudged that one. He's come through and gone fastest of anyone, 0.3 of a second clear of your own Bleekemolen.
Remarkable, absolutely remarkable. What Zanardi has done here, particularly in this session, I think is just going to be one of the highlights of the season for me.
Let's ride on board with him up into the Old Town. Working the wheel on the slippery surface as he comes up towards turn 7. A 34.7 in the first sector, which is a good 0.8 of a second slower than his best, so this isn't going to improve for Zanardi.
And it doesn't look like anybody else currently on the track is going to do anything that's going to challenge that time as Vanthoor came through, but there was a slow third sector for the Belgian driver, so right now Alex Zanardi could end up quickest in this session as well.
There was less of a lift as well as he came through turns 9. As he flashes now up towards the final chicane. Whoa, really attacks him, doesn't he? Goodness me.
Attack. He mutilated that curve. Bring out the correctness police for that one.
An improvement from Andy Soucek sees the Beechstein Aston Martin jump up into 8th place as we stay on board with Zanardi, really chopping through that final chicane. A thumbs up from the mechanics, even though they might have a bit of time to finish his run.
Yep, one position, up to 7th.
7th place for Andy Soucek at the line then. Daniel Kielwitz, did he improve? Yes, he got up into 9th place in that Callaway Corvette, but that's the man who was 2nd quickest in this session, and he said after the first session, I was a bit surprised to be so near the front, and he's got another pleasant surprise coming up now.
I mean, I think there was still, whatever, finishing 2nd in this session. I mean, stunning performance from Alex Zanardi. Certainly, I mean, aggressive. I mean, you wouldn't have thought he would have been as aggressive in these conditions, but coming through 11 and 12, that's the final little left-right chicane. I mean, getting the right rear of the car airborne, the right side of the car airborne.
Here's a look at the results from free practice 2. Cesar Ramos and Laurens Vanthoor end the session quickest. Alex Zanardi 2nd quickest. Procek and Bleekemolen looking strong this weekend. They are 3rd quickest, with Jens Klingmann and Dominic Baumann in 4th spot. René Rast and Enzo Eid 5th. Richard Westbrook and Norbert Ziegler in the track speed Porsche finishing in 7th place. Our championship leading car could only manage 14th position. Fabio Nidi and Giorgio Pantano got that Bitec together to finish in 13th in that session. Another man we haven't mentioned there in 15th place, and that is Matheus Stump's new teammate for the weekend, Miguel Paludo, and he is joining the Brazilian BMW outfit for this weekend. Marc Braseng and Alessandro Latifi, already Pro-Am champions, they are in 20th spot. And we've got 30 cars to get through, so these graphics take a little longer than they normally do. Rob Bell and Kevin Estra will be disappointed to be down in 25th place. We saw them come into the pits. Perhaps they have troubles with that Boots and Gignon car. Stefan Landman and Thomas Pavoda only managing 8 laps, unfortunately. Now we can hear from Alex Zanardi. Another strong performance from the Italian. He's with David Addison.
Alex Zanardi, what a day. Fastest in the first session, oh so nearly topping the times at the end of that, missing out by 0.7 of a second. What a day.
I better keep my mouth shut because I don't want to ruin. Yeah, everything is going great. I want to thank the Royal BMW Motorsports team for giving me certainly a great car. Evidently, this is a place where I kind of find myself at home. Sure. Having said that, I believe there is something also in the fact that due to the poor level of grip, you cannot apply a lot of pressure on the brake pedal. And this to a certain degree gives me an advantage because normally I have a big disadvantage in that area where other drivers, you know, they really push for it, and not only they can brake a touch later, but they can also generate more temperature in the tire, which ultimately it's grip. So to cut a long story short, I'm very pleased with the performance. I want to thank again BMW and the Royal Motorsports team for giving me a good car, and I'm going to try to drive it again to the best of my ability in qualifying.
With that advantage that you talk about, though, do you want it to be wet or do you want it to be dry for the rest of the weekend?
I can't control it, can I? No, I mean, I would certainly prefer dry, okay, but doesn't seem to be that bad with the rain tires either, you know. So the Pirelli tires are working fine, both, you know, with a dry surface or a wet one.
What about the circuit? Because it looks a really challenging track. It looks a really fast street circuit. It must be good to drive.
I enjoyed a lot, and last night when we were going around, I was telling my engineer, Nicola, I said, listen, Nicola, this is a place where if I was back in, you know, my old shoes, where I had similar car to others, I'd love to be so excited, you know, to start practice and then qualify and then race in a place like this one, because it's really a place where a driver can make a lot of difference. Now, having said that, it looks like I'm making myself a compliment, but I meant that normally the BMW is a great machine around the turns, but unfortunately we do not have the same size engine as others, and in acceleration and in top speed we normally suffer. But, you know, it's not just a coincidence that happened in a wet situation. We were fast in a dry as well. So what can I say? I can only keep my finger crossed. I'm glad to be here. I was not that excited when I jumped on the plane, but now I am indeed very excited.
Last question just about the grip levels in that session, because all the cars are coming back filthy like you've been in a rally. Is it really slippery out there? Is it really hard to find grip?
It's okay inside here. No, it is slippery, it is tricky, and there are a lot of places where the poor level of grip is not the only danger. You have to pay attention for bumps, and especially with the electronic in the downshifting, you know, if you ride over a bump while you're trying to downshift to call for the gear, this may result into, you know, the system blipping the throttle but not downshifting the gear, so it actually gasses the car forward, and you don't have a lot of margin, you know. I mean, you're not dealing with grass, you're dealing with walls that are not very flexible.
Alex, fantastic effort in free practice. Good luck for qualifying.
Thank you very much.
Great to hear from Alex Zanardi, and what was it? He's having fun, isn't he, this weekend?
Yeah, but what is great is his enthusiasm. Now watch, coming up through turns 11 and 12, watch the right-hand side of the car. He literally gets all of it on the but here, the compression in the front rear suspension, I mean, that right front suspension took a hammering, absolute hammering. But, you know, enthusiasm, just unbelievable from Alex Zanardi.
Doesn't look as dramatic on board, does it?
It isn't, but on the outside, I mean, suspension engineers are going to go, oh, we better check that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are the flame towers that overlook the city of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, and the host of the final round of the 2014 Blancpain Sprint Series. Coming up later, we have got the qualifying session in about 3.5 hours time now, and that will be the first crucial session of this weekend. And can the 84 car there, the championship leading car, get themselves higher up the grid than the 14th place they managed in free practice 2, and give them a chance of potentially wrapping up the title in the qualifying race tomorrow morning? If not, it'll all go down to the main race tomorrow afternoon. Some action out there on the circuit. That was the 888 car of Joe Osborne running wide and just letting some of the quicker guys coming through as the tyres came back in. They were steaming. There was Vanthor and Ramos having a little chat about the steering wheel. A few moments up at turn 7 predominantly, and that particular moment was Stefano Colombo going wide. The 84 HTP Merc in the hands of Max Boot got very close to the wall on the exit of turn 7 as Vincent Abril powered out of the hairpin. It was a strong performance from the 31 car, track speed Porsche, Norbert Siedler and Richard Westbrook. Great to have them in the championship, and they ended free practice in 6th position, so they may well be looking strong for the qualifying that we've got coming up a little bit later on. All the BMWs really were attacking the chicane, and Cesar Ramos was attacking the runoff area, but he managed to recover, and that number 1 car ended up quickest of anyone. Thomas Pavoda and Stefan Landman only finished down in 30th place. Jeroen Bleekemolen was looking quick, finishing in 3rd. 2nd place though for Alex Zanardi after being quickest in first free practice, but Laurens Vanthor in the number 1 WRT Audi was the man to beat. He ended the session in 1st place.